She was strong, fearless, and full of life. The kind of woman who hiked mountains for fun and played pickleball until the sun went down. But the same air she loved breathing as a child carried something that would one day take her breath away for good. This is the story of Diane and the community that kept her spirit alive long after her final game. Please note, names and images have been changed to protect privacy. Nothing in this video should be taken as medical advice. Always consult a physician for everything before doing anything. In the rolling hills of upstate New York, mornings start with the sound of wind through pine trees. And for Karen Whitfield, it started with motion. Always motion. She was 59, but you wouldn't know it. Her friends joked she had more energy than half the 20-somethings she beat on the pickleball court. Karen wasn't just active, she was alive. Weekends meant mountain bike trails, sunrise hikes, or a double pickleball match, followed by coffee and loud laughter. She'd say, "Movement is medicine," and she lived by it. Tennis had been her first love, but pickleball, that was her new obsession. The rhythm of the game, the community, the way it made everyone belong. To Karen, every serve was a small celebration, every match a reminder that life was meant to be chased, not waited for. She never thought about the air she breathed, or the dust that sometimes hung low near the river on windy days. Why would she? Her world was bright, clean, and full of color. What she didn't know, what none of them could know, was that the same air that filled her lungs with life had been quietly stealing it all along. It began like any other game. A cloudless morning. Karen, racing to the net, laughing as her friend Laura missed an easy return. Then, just for a moment, she paused. A shortness of breath. Barely noticeable, but she noticed. She brushed it off, of course. Everyone did. Maybe it was the humidity or pollen, or one too many games back to back. After all, she was in her 50s. This was normal, right? But the cough didn't fade. It whispered through quiet mornings and echoed in the stillness of night. Her chest felt tight on the bike trails she used to fly through. And one afternoon, when she had to stop halfway up a familiar hill, she laughed it off to her riding group. "Guess I'm not 25 anymore." Weeks passed. Doctors said maybe allergies, maybe mild asthma, a few tests, an inhaler, a promise to take it easy. So she did what strong people do. She kept moving, because slowing down felt like surrender. But something inside her was changing. The game that had always given her breath was now the very thing showing her how much of it she was losing. The waiting room clock ticked louder than usual that day. Or maybe it only felt that way. Karen sat beside her husband, hands clasped tightly together, the way she used to hold her paddle before a tough pickleball match. Except this time, she wasn't playing for points. She was waiting for answers. The doctor entered with that kind of calm Karen had come to recognize. The kind that wasn't good news, but wasn't ready to say it outright either. His words were deliberate, soft, yet somehow heavy enough to silence the world around her. "Karen, the tests show something we need to talk about. It's in your lungs." Her breath caught. Lungs? She didn't smoke, never had. She ate clean, walked daily, and spent weekends in the open air with friends. Her mind raced, searching for logic where there was none. She looked to her husband, who was already squeezing her hand tighter, as if trying to hold her to the earth before she floated away. The doctor went on about staging, biopsies, and treatment paths. Karen heard only fragments. Advanced, environmental exposure, aggressive form. The words clanged like broken bells. Later that night, she sat at her kitchen table long after everyone else had gone to bed. Her notebook lay open, the same one she used for tracking pickleball drills. But tonight, the page was blank. "How?" she whispered. "How could this happen to me?" The next morning, she watched the sunrise from her back porch. The air looked the same, clear, golden, alive. Yet she couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, the same air she loved had betrayed her. She made a promise to herself right then. If this is the match I've been given, I'll play it with everything I've got. It wasn't denial. It was resolve, quiet, steady, and unshakably Karen. Karen had always believed in cause and effect. You plant good seeds, you get good fruit. You take care of your body, it takes care of you. But now, that logic was cracking. The doctor had mentioned environmental exposure. The phrase looped in her mind like an echo she couldn't turn off. What did that even mean? One afternoon, while sorting through old family photo albums, she began to trace her life backward, searching for clues. There she was at 10 years old, chasing dragonflies near the creek behind her childhood home. The water looked so clear back then, though she remembered the strange metallic smell that sometimes lingered after the nearby factory released its waste. Her father had worked at that same plant for 30 years, a proud man who rarely missed a shift. He died young, his lungs failing him before his retirement party. Back then, they'd called it pneumonia. Now, Karen wasn't so sure. She started making calls. Local health departments, environmental agencies, even a university research team that had once studied her hometown soil. The pieces began to fit. Decades of industrial runoff, unreported contamination, and communities suffering in silence. It wasn't anger she felt. Not exactly. It was clarity. Like she'd been handed the missing pages of a story her family had lived without realizing it. One evening, she met with a retired neighbor who used to fish in that same creek. "You ever wonder why the fish disappeared?" he asked, shaking his head. "We thought it was just bad luck. Turns out it was poison." That night, Karen stood at her bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection, the lines of time etched around her eyes, the gentle rise and fall of her breath. She finally understood. This wasn't just her illness. It was a legacy, one written by generations who had unknowingly inhaled and absorbed the cost of progress. But Karen wasn't one to let history win quietly. If her story could shine a light on what had been buried for too long, she'd make sure no one else had to trace their past the way she just had. When Karen began her first round of treatment, the doctors told her to take it easy. Rest, stay home, let her body heal. But rest had never been in her vocabulary. The first week after chemo, she felt like her bones were filled with lead. Even walking to the mailbox felt like hiking Everest. But when her pickleball friends sent a group message, "We miss you on the court," she smiled for the first time in days. Maybe just to watch, she told herself. That Saturday, she drove to the courts bundled in a hoodie and scarf. The autumn sun felt softer now, but the sound of paddles and laughter was the same melody she remembered. Sharp pops of contact, sneakers squeaking, friends calling scores through bursts of joy. Her doubles partner Linda spotted her immediately. "Well, look who's back," she shouted, running over to hug her. "You're not watching, you're playing. Doctor's orders." Karen laughed. Pretty sure those weren't the doctor's orders. But that day she played anyway, slowly, carefully, and when she landed her first soft dink over the net, the entire court erupted in applause. Something lit inside her again. Pickleball became her rhythm of recovery. Between treatments, she'd practice short sessions, 15 minutes here, half an hour there, until her legs remembered the dance. The game didn't erase her illness, but it reminded her of who she was before it. Strong, fierce, competitive, alive. Her friends started organizing charity matches in her name, Rally for Karen, raising funds for mesothelioma research. People she'd never met came to play, share stories, and write her letters. One man told her his wife had died of the same cancer. He said watching Karen play again gave him hope, like seeing a sunrise I thought I'd never see. Karen never forgot that. Even on her hardest days, when her breath came shallow and her energy faded, she'd whisper to herself, "One more game, one more serve." She wasn't fighting to win anymore. She was fighting to play, for every person who couldn't. And in those moments, paddle in hand, she wasn't a patient. She was Karen again. The day Karen decided to hang up her paddle, the world seemed unusually still. Winter had rolled in early that year. The courts were dusted with a thin shimmer of frost, and her breath rose in small clouds as she stood on the baseline, paddle in hand. Her friends had gathered, not because she asked, but because none of them could imagine her playing her last game alone. Linda placed a hand on her shoulder. "You sure about this?" Karen smiled softly. "Yeah, every player knows when it's time to step off the court." The first serve came slowly, not the fast spinning ball she was known for, but a gentle arc that floated through the cold air like a farewell. Each return was careful, deliberate, almost ceremonial. She wasn't trying to win points. She was saying goodbye. Between volleys, she felt memories rush through her like warm wind. Her first pickleball lesson, her laughter echoing through tournaments, the look of pride on her father's face when she told him she'd finally beaten the men at the local club. Every sound, the thwack of the paddle, the cheers, the scrape of shoes on asphalt, blended into a single heartbeat of gratitude. By the end of the game, her body trembled. She leaned on the net, catching her breath, and whispered, "That's it. That's enough." Her friends surrounded her in silence. No one clapped. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Everyone knew what this moment meant. Afterward, she sat on the bench overlooking the empty court. The setting sun painted everything in gold and amber, and for a long time, she just watched, the same way she used to after winning a tough match. "I'm not afraid," she said quietly to Linda. "I just wish I had more time to play." Linda wiped her eyes. "You gave us all a lifetime of matches, Karen." That night, Karen wrote her final journal entry. "Pickleball wasn't just a game. It was proof that I was alive, even when my body tried to tell me otherwise. If this is my last serve, then I served with love." And somewhere between the silence and the stars, she drifted into rest, not as a patient, but as a player who finished her match with grace. Spring arrived quietly that year, the first one without Karen. The pickleball courts, once her second home, were still full of laughter and life. But something had changed. Every time someone served, they paused for half a second longer, as if waiting for her voice to call the score. Linda was the first to suggest it. A memorial tournament in Karen's name. Not a somber event, but a celebration, exactly how Karen would have wanted it. They called it Karen's Rally for Hope. Dozens came from across New York, some who had played with her for years, others who had only heard her story online, about the woman who fought mesothelioma with a paddle and a smile. A large banner stretched across the fence. "Play hard, love harder, live fully, for Karen." The day began like any other match, sneakers squeaking, paddles cracking, cheers echoing through the trees. But when Linda stepped up to serve the ceremonial first ball, she felt her throat tighten. "She taught us how to fight," Linda said, voice trembling, "not with anger, but with purpose." She smiled through the tears. "And she'd probably yell at me right now for crying instead of playing." Everyone laughed, and then they played, hard. Between matches, players shared stories, how Karen had encouraged them to take up the game after illness, how she'd listened without judgment, how she'd made people feel seen. Later that afternoon, a group of younger players presented Linda with a check. Donations from the event going to mesothelioma research. "She's still helping people," one of them said. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the shadows stretched across the empty courts, a soft breeze carried the faint sound of a paddle tapping a ball. Or maybe it was just memory playing tricks. Linda looked up at the sky and smiled. "She's still here," she whispered. "Every time we play, she's here." And somewhere, in the echo of laughter, the rhythm of volleys, and the warmth of friendship, Karen's spirit lived on. Not as a victim of disease, but as a champion of life. Because in the end, her legacy wasn't just a game. It was a reminder. Every serve, every breath, every moment is a gift. We hope this story about love and resilience on the pickleball court had meaning in your life. If it did, please give the video a like and consider subscribing to this channel. It helps bring more stories like this to life. This story inspired us to make a design that represents courage, healing, and hope. If you or a loved one can relate to this story, we invite you to view the design and help keep this message alive. You'll find the link to the design in the description below. For more uplifting stories, click a playlist or video here.